Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday morning, the 19th of December 2020, and I've entitled this video, The Greatest Shepherd. As a child growing up, from fifth grade all the way through high school, we lived next door to a guy that had a bunch of sheep. And I got to know, I got to see firsthand for about 8 years the habits and behaviors of sheep. And frankly, it was quite a lesson. Quite a lesson. There was much to glean from seeing the behavior of sheep, and also there was much to glean from spending 8 years next door to a shepherd. And he probably had about, I would say 20, 25 sheep. He also worked at the stockyards in Kansas City. And so he was very familiar with sheep. And by living next door, I became very familiar with sheep. In fact, I even watched him when he was shearing the sheep. I would go over and watch him. And the sheep were, by and large, mostly very docile, and they were followers. And there was usually a leader among the sheep, and that leader would, wherever that leader would go, all the rest of the sheep would follow. And when the sheep were sheared, oftentimes shearing of the sheep would get a little bit too close and accidentally cut the sheep, and they, of course, would bleed. After they were sheared, he would usually shear them in the summertime, and that way they were cooler. But of course, during the wintertime, the wool was a protective coat for the sheep and would keep them warm during the wintertime. The shepherd, his name was Mr. Kirk, Minor Kirk. He would always be careful to take care that the sheep had plenty to eat. They would be in the pasture where there was plenty of good grass to eat, or that needed special care. You would always be careful to take care of them. The Bible is full of representations of the great shepherd, the greatest shepherd that ever lived, Jesus Christ. The greatest shepherd that is living today is Jesus Christ, the great shepherd of the sheep. Sometimes he shears us. He knows what's best for us. We may feel wounded. We may feel bloody. Sometimes a shepherd has to break a wayward lamb's leg to get them to learn to be dependent upon the shepherd. And the shepherd has a staff, a crook. And the crook will pull the sheep away from the briars, away from the cliffs, and it's a great tool. Jesus Christ does the same thing with his sheep. He pulls us out of we get ourselves in a mess. He takes his staff, his rod, and he pulls us out of the miry clay, as it were, and sets us on a rock. So this morning, let us think on the greatest shepherd that ever lived, and how what he chastens us, he provides sustenance, physical and spiritual sustenance for us. He's a protective shepherd. He says, I give my life for the sheep. I lay down my life for the sheep. I'm glad that we have a great shepherd who is constantly looking out after our welfare in the midst of wolves. Sometimes there would be a dog that would break into the fences and try to chase the sheep. You had to be careful about coyotes coming around. And there are those out there that are coyotes, want to attack the flock of God, or wolves, or dogs. I have gone astray like a lost sheep. Seek thy servant. The Son of Man is come to seek and to save that which was lost. Ye were as sheep going astray, but are now returned unto the shepherd and bishop of your souls. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. I will feed my flock, cause them to lie down, saith the Lord. Psalm 119, 176, Luke 19:10, 1 Peter 2:25, Luke 12:32, and Ezekiel 34:15. Tells us, my sheep know my voice, and they follow me, and no man can pluck them out of my hand, and no man can pluck them out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one. It's good to know the great shepherd of the sheep. It's good to know that he has always been our caregiver and always will be. So this morning, let us remember that we have the greatest shepherd ever, and we are the sheep of his pasture. And he causes us to lie down in green pastures. He leads us beside the still waters. He restores our soul. Yea, though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we will fear no ill, for he's with us. His rod and his staff, they comfort us. He prepares a table before us in the presence of our enemies. He causes our cup to run over. And surely goodness and mercy will follow us all the days of our life, and we will dwell in the house of the Lord, our great shepherd, forever. May the good Lord be with you today in a special way, is my prayer. God bless.